And then the last time, thank God I was filming because this celebrity tried to hit me with his car and like multiple times. And while we were on his property, he called his private security and that guy showed up, obviously a cop, and pulled his gun out on me. So he had me at gunpoint while I'm serving these dogs. And it's like I've got it all on video. And because I was videotaping it, is what I think kept them cool.
Hey, Ken Childs. Welcome to Tales from the Shift. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so you became a private investigator at 21. That's really
Two
young.
weeks.
How did you get involved with that?
Yeah. So 2 weeks before my 21st birthday, I was working at a bar in Old Town Pasadena and kind of a really big, like a bad situation broke out and I handled it effortlessly. And where I ended up like throwing a guy outside of the bar. And when I came back in, there was a table of usuals that I never really got into like what people did, their own personal business. I just kind of ended up like chatting with them. And when they saw me kind of pounce on this guy and handle this situation, they were like, hey, sit down. We got to talk. Offered me a job on the spot.
So the people at the table, they must have worked for some sort of company that does private investigation.
Yeah. So there were three individuals at the table and they all worked for Frasco. This was a large investigation firm in Southern California, even offices in Northern California. And they liked me and offered me a job on the spot.
Cool. So you've done it for quite a long time. Is there any time in the geez, what is it, over 20 years that you've been doing this? Did you ever say, you know what, I'm quitting. I'm never going to do this again? And obviously you changed your mind, but did that ever cross your mind?
Periodically, and it's just kind of like more so recent just because the times are changing and there's like the perception of what people think private investigators like can do. And then you have, and that goes along with like attorney clients too, like I get these attorneys that are calling me and in a sense like asking me to do illegal stuff, or their expectations are just completely beyond the scope of like what we can do. And so
Okay.
that gets like very frustrating.
You think it's like a because of TV shows and movies that people kind of they're a little confused?
Yeah, they're watching a little too much TV. They think we're gonna go and like hack some phones, or what was the last time this attorney asked me to do something? I think it was like, yeah, like get their iMessages and stuff like that. It's like, what made you think we could do that? And then okay, so great. Let's say I can do that, right? Like, here I am banging away. Oh, there's your iMessages. Okay, now what? How are you going to submit that to court?
All right. So since obviously we're confused as to exactly what a private investigator can or can't do, why don't you tell us some of the things that you do and the things that also besides the hacking that people think you do that you really don't?
Okay. So the short of it is private investigators are private citizens, right? I'm just your average Joe. I can only do what like an average person can do, right? And so that would be, except I do pay for like special tools, which would be, some of our surveillance equipment and or the databases that we all like subscribe to, right? So like I pay for data. So if I had to like look you up, uh, you know, missing persons or whatever, or a workers' comp claim. And it's like, so where do we all begin? We like go to those databases and look people up. Then the rest would be either to like go and speak with them, right? They're either like a witness and or we have to like locate them. So we got to go and speak with people, and that's how you locate the people, or follow them. So that'd be surveillance. So really most of our private investigations breaks down into like locates, interview statements, and witnesses. Sorry, and or surveillance.
Okay. So how are you paid? Is it generally like a per hour plus expenses kind of a situation?
Right. So I charge per hour. And because I've been doing this long enough, I try to get people to look in the terms of like a budget. Like, okay, if we're gonna do a workers' comp claim, then I would suggest ponying up like X amount of budget. And what that would give me would be like a day or two, maybe even 3 days of surveillance. Or let's say it's a cheating spouse case. And like I've had a conversation with that person and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a sexy Friday night. So I'm going to like narrow down that budget get them for that Friday night, and then hopefully all goes well for the client, right? So I try to get people to think in terms of like budget. But yeah, in my mind, on the business side of things, like I am breaking it down per hour. So I want like X dollars times eight. I need a little buffer in there for a little drive time, a little gas. And then if the case ends up going like a little longer, I'm probably not going to beat the client up over it. I just want to look that much better, deliver the receivables, and like hopefully everybody's like happy. So that's like how I look at things. Like that's the business like lens of a private investigator.
Okay. So I guess I have two questions for you. So you say you have various databases, you can type in some people and maybe locate. So let's say someone had a missing persons. I'd really like to locate this person, and then you go into that software. How often? Pretty much solve it immediately because the software gives you what you need. You call them, oh, they're here. They are, and then if you if they're not in there at all, like you have a dead, there's not even, they're not in the database, or it points to wrong people, what have you. What would your next steps be to actually locate somebody?
Yeah, so those are you have really good questions, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, so I did have a case where a young lady came to me and her family's from Mexico and she was born here. Her family like went back and she was, just truly upset and distraught that like she hasn't spoke to them in X years. And I forget, it was a long time, like 15 plus years. And typically like a database search isn't going to bring that information up because they've like left, like they've left the country. But unbeknownst to her, they came back. They came back to the States, but all the families somehow got spread out over that like 10, 15-year window that they were gone. And they've recently been back the last 5 years. So I went back into the databases and I located, their family. And lo and behold, they were like 3 miles away. So I was able to connect that young lady for like a $200 database search and two phone calls.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the people weren't avoiding her. It was just like
No, just
across the lines kind of a thing.
oh, the family got spread out and they all went their own ways and lost connections and
Amazing.
some significant time like went on and everybody lost touch. So now when it comes to cases that like you were talking about a second ago where if they're not in the databases, then what do we do? Like I've got to be honest with you, like 9 out of 10 I'm going to pump the brakes on that because like I don't know what the backstory is going to be. Or there's a case right now that I'm working where I'm looking for somebody who is about to lose an inherited property. So I'm trying to locate that person. Oddly enough, in his tax paperwork and for the property, I'm looking up the property. It's got like the breakdown and persons of contacts and all this other stuff. So in there is another person's name and their affiliation basically with that individual. The problem is that that individual is a social worker. So since he's a social worker, he's bound by law to not tell me anything about his client. So we're at like a little bit of a weird little impasse, right? So now because the social worker's not thrilled with me because I'm hunting him down like a freaking, like I'm a bounty hunter going after this guy. But luckily, I'm able to communicate with him well enough that like, hey, I get it. I'm sorry. I'm like approaching you in 15 different avenues, 15 different ways. But the reality is, this guy's going to lose an inherited property that I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to lose, where these investors are willing to like pay him some money versus him just like outright losing it. Cause everybody knows this guy's not going to be able to catch up on the taxes and bills. Right. So now luckily that social worker is now going to make contact with our person of interest and then let that person of interest make contact with us. So there's kind of like avenues like that.
Mhm.
But if it's just like literally no new information, we got to just backtrack. We have to go back over the old info. We got to possibly talk with neighbors, family members, stuff like that, and look for a new avenue to approach.
Have you had to kind of chase, probably is not the right word, but follow somebody's path to other states?
Not really. because we're pretty specific to California, but I mean, yeah, there have been cases, but then I'll just outsource it to, let's say they moved to South Carolina or there's a surveillance needed in Florida. Like I've got enough contacts where I'll just like call a local and have a local do it.
So just sort of pass the baton sort of a situation.
Yeah, or let's say you got somebody like Floyd Mayweather, right? This guy's like such a dirtbag. Everybody's trying to serve this guy on the planet. Like I get a call every, if not every year, every other year where they want to surf, Floyd Mayweather. A, good luck with that. B, he's got like 10 houses and I know how to catch the guy, but I'm not going to say it on air. But like, yeah, so you have a person of interest like that who just can like jump on one of his like three private jets and just end up in Miami that afternoon. Like, yeah, it takes some skills.
What would you say is who's your number one client? Like if you had to say my avatar is this is the number one, the most common case and the most common client, what would that be?
So for us, it'd be attorney clients, and that would be anything ranging from serving documents, where it's like very difficult to get these people served, so they need surveillance, like but like top level surveillance performed to get them served. And then it's workers' comp claims and or like personal injury claims where people are saying, "Oh, I'm so injured I can no longer do X, Y, and Z." Then it's the whole like cheating spouses and child custody and whatnot.
Okay. So if somebody was watching this right now and they said, "Hey, I really want to do this," what would be what would be the path they should take? If you gave them advice, is there any particular education they should go for? A door they should knock on? What would you suggest?
So I would suggest if you just have zero, if you have a college degree and you really want to do this, just start making some phone calls and see if somebody's hiring, right? But I do recommend that you truly deep dive and understand like what we do as private investigators and try to figure out exactly what you want to do first, right? If you think you're going to just sit there and look for people all day on the internet, like, hey, there are people that do that, like, good. If you could dial that in, good for you. But chances are you're going to probably start out in the surveillance realm or statements, right? So like you have to truly understand like what surveillance is. That's sitting out in a car that's probably 130 degrees by like 7:30 in the morning. Like, are you ready for that? Can you do that for an 8, 10, 16 hour day? Yeah.
That sucks.
You ready to pee in a bottle?
All right.
Have any sort of educational background, then I would just be like very forthright with the private investigator and just say like, hey, look, I want to get my foot in the industry. I'm willing to do anything. I understand what the job takes, A, B, and C. Like, what can I do to prove myself to you? Right? Because I've hired a handful of people, and I would rather have that than like, here's some like 4-page resume. First off, I'm already gonna like delete your email because the resume is 1 page. So if I got to sit there and scroll through 3 pages of you working at Wendy's and the auto parts store and stuff that's irrelevant, we're done. But if you're like, hey, I did work at the stupid Quickie Mart and I hate my life, but I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. I would love to get started in surveillance. I know exactly what the hell it takes. I am just begging you for a shot. That's the person I would rather talk to.
Nice. And you said, if you back up for real quick, you said statements. That's maybe besides sitting in a car. What does that mean?
So statements are when typically it's going to be for like an injury claim, right? So it's going to be like a workers' comp claim or a personal injury claim, like an auto claim. And we would have to locate them through the databases or if we're provided their information, then we're going to set up an appointment with them and talk to them about what they saw, right? Or let's actually like some criminal cases, a ton of criminal work is statements where someone's saying like they witnessed a shooting, or a stabbing or a brutal fight. And we would make contact with these people. I prefer to take statements in person, but like today, most of the people want to do them over the phone. So you're going to get these statements like who are you, who, what, when, where, why, unseen, who, what, when, where, why, and try to get that for either
Okay.
the insurance company and or your defense attorney.
Okay. What about money? What would someone hope to make at the very beginning of getting involved with this work, in the middle of their career, and then late career? What do you think?
So getting started in the private investigation field, the pay is awful. Um, and the reason being is like there's not enough profit for me to gamble on you, right? So like if I am gambling on hiring you, um, I've got it's a little bit of a risk. I'm going to bring you in at an okay rate because if you do turn out to be just like a waste of everybody's time and money, like I'm eating all of that, right? But if I'm training you up and you're getting it, I give you raises like as things are going. Like I don't care if it's 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, you're a rock star. I'm gonna give you a raise. 6 months in, you're still on that trajectory and you're a badass. I'm dropping you a raise. Like you're not gonna come to me and ask me for money. And then mid career, the money's pretty good. It just depends on like who you are as a person. Like, let's say now you've got your license and this is now mid career. What kind of contacts do you have? Are you working with other private investigators? Are you staying solely with me? Are you, kind of like building up that repertoire? And that money kind of gets like pretty good. You should be at, probably 70,000 to 100,000 a year. But with how expensive California is, sadly, that's kind of like it's no longer good money. It's getting by money in LA now. So all of that's changing and getting difficult. End of career, I know plenty of private investigators that make like outrageous money, and I know 20 times more private investigators that are just lucky to get a phone call. I don't know.
It's almost like you have to get a name for yourself, and once that name gets around, then the phone doesn't really stop ringing.
Yeah, you have to like market on every platform available today, right? Like everything's growing and changing. So you have to be on Instagram, you have to be on TikTok, you have to dominate Google, you got to get on freaking the AI systems, you've got to like manage all of that on top of managing your business and handling your actual caseloads. And it's complicated. But now, like as a one person operation, who let's say back in the day when I first started out, you'd be wearing like 3 to 5 hats, right? Where A, I got to go market. So there's my marketing hat. B, I got the business hat. How much am I worth? What am I providing to the client? C, turning over the like doing the actual work, and then C, turning over the video evidence and whatnot for them, right? So like at that point, I'm wearing like 3 to 4 hats, and today now you're wearing like 10 hats. So you have to bring in enough money to start hiring people and build up your office and or your clientele, your contact list.
Okay, so a second ago you mentioned that you get a license. What does the license do for you? Because it sounded like you said you just do anything a private person could do. What does it do?
So the licensing itself,
Yeah.
the only thing that gives me is a I get a cool little like ID card that comes with it, and which I haven't used in 25 years. And then B, that licensing allows me to apply to these database services. And that's a very probably like our most valuable tool. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it just gives me credit, gives me the ability to do bounty hunting, gives me the ability to get, I think, insurance for our industry. So yeah, so there's that, the databases,
So
coverage. Yeah.
bounty hunting is sort of what you call an add-on to what a private investigator do. I guess what you're saying is you don't do bounty hunting.
I no longer do bounty hunting. I did it years ago, when I was like an adrenaline seeker, and it was fun for the 5 years that I did it. But looking back, it wasn't for me. I was like way too much of a I have too much of a good sense of humor to keep doing bounty hunting.
All right. I think you kind of already answered this, but work-life balance as a private investigator, how would you describe it if you have anything more to add on that?
So there's zero work life balance. When you get a call, you take that call, and then when it comes to work, I mean, if they're like, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" there you go. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? Yeah, you got to take it while it's hot.
Yeah. So I guess you have to have very understanding partner in this situation.
Yeah, you have to have a very understanding partner or business partners or build yourself up to the point where you're like taking calls and you have your investigators do it. I'm fortunate enough to I have like two wives. I have my work wife, who's my business partner, and she's amazing and helps me with the work side of things. And then I have my actual wife, who's very flexible with me as well.
Okay. What about peers? How often do you interact with other private investigators, and how is that relationship?
Probably, so I interact with other PIs probably on the daily. I have I don't know, I belong to a couple of associations, and so I catch up with people that I like, and or if they have like some niche that I need advice on, or maybe I'll just hand over a client to them. So I try to nurture those relationships, and we just do through like, or if I've got a difficult client and I need a vent session, then I'm going to call another professional that like understands like what I'm going through, and just blow up the phone with them for a couple minutes, have a little fun at it, and then get back to work. So yeah, I have quite a bit of contacts, and I talk to them like almost daily.
When you so I'm curious about niches. What would you say your niche is, and what would you say some of your other people that you might call what their niches would be?
So my niche is like surveillance, and so I don't care what it is, right? If I'm like watching a cheating spouse, or if I'm looking for a homeless person, we're gonna go and like just watch, right? Try to try to identify like what's going on, who's out there, capture it on videotape, like whatever we think that is going to help the client. And so that's like our niche, surveillance, period. And then I have a girlfriend that does statements. She only does statements. She doesn't care about surveillance whatsoever. She's calling you and wondering like how that accident happened. I have another female private investigator who just strictly does like online research. She has kind of special needs where she has lost her hearing as a child. And so I guess her ability to like search the internet and type is like significantly stronger and faster than most PIs. So that's how she developed her niche. So she does the like OSINT, investigation work. And then there are people that do like bounty hunting. There's another private investigator I talked to about a week ago, and all they specialize in is judgment enforcement. So if you've got these like multi-million dollar lawsuits, and persons with assets, they go and like hunt that down, track that down, enforce that judgment. Yeah, so there's that. My brother specializes in like a difficult process service. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to deal with like clients. He doesn't want to deal with attorneys. He just wants to get the work from the other private investigator and just serve documents. That's all he wants to do.
Cool. Well, all right. That's neat to see that there's different avenues what someone could gravitate towards that fits them personally, I suppose.
Yeah, believe it or not, there are people that like do like a pet locates, like you've lost a pet, and they're gonna go and yeah, like Ace Ventura, private detective. So that like truly exists. It's not my
Amazing.
jam, it truly exists. People that like specifically work on locating heirs, right? Someone passes away, there's a property left behind, or there are other investigators that specialize in like very similar work, but where they're looking up other like extended family members, right? Like long lost loved ones, stuff like that.
Hey, quick timeout. I just want to say that if you'd like to come on the show, email me at talesfromtheshiftpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll talk about your shift. What about slang terms that a private investigator might say to another private investigator? Anything?
So the slang terms would be kind of like, I would say if you got burned or not, right? Like if you're on a job and someone's like spotted you or identified you, or you felt like they're giving you too much attention, so you like got burned. Then there's the code 5. So that's basically the like kind of law enforcement code for calling into the sheriff's or the police office, police department, and letting them know like, hey, we're on a surveillance. That's what code 5 is. We're on a surveillance. We're at this 100 block or these cross streets. So that's a code 5. And then SOP is like service of process, POS, policies and procedures, POP. Oh yeah. So there's just like a handful. I don't
Okay.
really get terribly like into all that stuff. So like
Okay.
I said, I'm just like your average Joe and I'm just keeping things moving. So I'm not like feeding into the perception or fedora wearing, private investigation like genre.
Okay. All right. Can you explain to us the difference between professional surveillance to the point of harassment? Where's the line on that? How's that figured out?
Interesting. Okay, so picture this. You're on surveillance. You're in your car. You've got your camera up, you're filming. There's a little bit of activity, right? The person's outside of their house shoveling. This is all good. This is all great stuff. And the reason being is it's in public plain view. Now, let's say you're on another surveillance where this is actually a case I had years ago, and I fought this in court. I won the battle, and I'll tell you why. So there was a case where someone was claiming an injury, and it was this mansion, right? But there was a huge vault, vertical glass behind their front door. So their front door would stay open, and then they had that huge glass going up and a big spiral staircase going up behind that, and the person was vacuuming and going up and down the staircase. And so, normally, as a private investigator, that's a judgment call whether you're going to film that activity or not. My take is always film, always, because I'm outside in my car and I am demonstrating what the public can see. I'm filming that. So, if I can see it, I'm going to film it. Now, here's where they were trying to get the videotape like kicked out was I would zoom in occasionally to get the identifying shot, right? To show this is Jane Smith and she's doing the vacuuming where she's claiming she couldn't do it. And so what they were saying is like I was zoomed in to the point where it was invasive. They wanted to argue like they wanted my videotape thrown out for invasion of privacy. But my argument was because I was curbside, like across the street, curbside, and this is what a normal person could see, right? I always use the phrase like a postal carrier. If a postman is delivering the mail and turns and looks, and that's what they see, that's what you're getting with me, right? And so I was able to argue that because when I zoomed in, I didn't pass this threshold where it was so much so that it would have been like within the home, right? I didn't go like into the doorway and film within the house. I kept the doorway and the framed glass there and got it close enough where you could still see a little bit of the exterior of the house. So I wasn't so intrusive that I was trying to like, get something that a normal naked eye couldn't see. Right. And I know another investigator whose video was thrown out for that exact reason because they had a shot of a window and they zoomed into the window and stayed within the like window of the home and tried to like get that extra bit of video. And that ended up being just too much for the courts and they threw that person's video out. So there is a line, but the line isn't like exactly definitive, Or if you want to define it, let's say there's a wooden fence, and in the slots you could see activity. Well, I'll film that, and I'll get you going back and forth. And then when you come out of the front of the house, I'll be like, see, that is Timmy because he's wearing the red shirt and the blue jeans and the white sneakers, which were going back and forth. And a reasonable person can assume that's Jimmy because they were going back and forth and doing their work in the back behind the gate. But now the second I now get my tripod and I go up over the gate and try to get Timmy in his backyard, now that is actually an invasion of privacy.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
I worked another case where I had a gal who was working in her backyard on her horse ranch, and I was filming through the fence, but not so much through the fence, but filming the fence and getting the activity going past. I did notice there was a hill behind me where I was able to go up to the public trail on that hillside, and I could see clearly down into her backyard and captured videotape of her working. So like each scenario is kind of like slightly different, whether you can or can't. You have to be trained or have enough experience to know what's going to be like evasive or trespass or not.
Um, okay, makes sense. Have you ever done surveillance for somebody, surveilled someone, and then there were repercussions, as in somebody found out who you were and started messing with you or came at you in any particular way?
Yeah. So because I am a professional private investigator, I'm easily found. I'm all over the internet. So now a lot of people will like assume that I work for them. They'll call me, threaten me, or they'll go and post like negative reviews. I've got a case where I'm currently being sued actually. I'm currently being sued because this guy's trying to connect me to a case. It just so happens that I did work the case. And the only reason why I'm talking about it, it's public knowledge because of the lawsuit. So yeah, it's a mess.
Really?
Yeah.
Anything physical? Have you had any physical altercations doing this work? Besides the bounty hunting, obviously, that
Besides the
would
bounty hunting, no, no. And then the reason being is if I'm on surveillance and let's say you get caught on a surveillance, heaven forbid, or a neighbor just doesn't like that you're parked out in front of their house and you got this like blacked out car and it's like creepy as hell. You as a private investigator need to pick up on these vibes. You need to be observant of your surroundings and pay attention because you never know. Like the house three doors down could be offended that you're there. And before you know it, you got somebody like standing over your car door, pulling your car door open, or knocking on your window and like just blowing up your whole situation. And if you're really not careful and you've got your cars unlocked or the window down, like now you got someone reaching in, like a fist fight's on. Like I see private investigators in the news like every other year because they weren't paying attention and someone pounced on them.
well, I can completely imagine you're surveilling a house and there's a drug dealer who lives within a house or two of there.
Yep.
I mean, they're gonna flip out pretty fast, I would imagine, if they were to see you out there. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So so like if all that's unfolding and it's happening to you semi regularly, you need to kind of rethink how you're doing surveillance. It's not necessarily the neighborhood. It's
Well, you know what, that leads me to another question that I had for you is who would you say this job is not for?
I would say this job is not for the like lackadaisical, not for the newer person who's like easily offended or aloof. Let's face it, people are so easily agitated and offended over stuff. You're going to be talking to people I'm gonna be talking to like I can't tell you how many times I've been in a gangbanger's house talking to gangbangers because they were like a witness to a crime. Or I'm talking to a gangbanger and they're dropping like racial slurs on me and stuff like that. Like, and if I'm offended to that, that conversation's over. Whether it was directed to me or in general topic, or let's say like I've got to describe somebody, I got to describe them as 6 foot tall, male white, or 6 foot tall, male black, female black, like XYZ. Like this is how we've got to describe people to perform our duties. So stuff like that. If you're so sensitive to that, then I don't think this is the career choice for you.
Would you say you have to be a people person?
Not necessarily, because like surveillance would be perfect for you. Let's say you're like a working vet, you're a vet with like PTSD. Surveillance might be your jam. You're in your car following a subject, you don't make contact with anybody. Like that could be great for you.
All right, if you had to describe a veteran private investigator, how would you describe that they look and they act like? What picture do you have in your head?
So sadly, when I close my eyes and I imagine this, it just like brings me to these conferences that I go to, and it brings up like the typical 60-year-old fat white retired cop.
So a lot of retired cops.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that gives them any type of leg up on in this career field? I mean, because I know you said if you don't have to have, I mean, you never mentioned that as a required background. So what do you think about
No.
that?
No, so it does give them a leg up for marketing purposes, right? Like I was so and so police department, these were the positions I held for X years, and like that's all great for marketing. But then again, I can't tell you like how many private investigators I've seen out there that were retired cops that were just like awful.
Really?
Yeah, they don't understand that they no longer have like a badge. Like you watch a retired cop take their first couple of handful of statements. They're used to that mode of like, when I ask you a question, you're gonna freaking answer it. Like I've got the power of the badge. Where now, you know, like like I've seen retired cops like go talk to a witness, and a witness tells them like go fuck themselves. And they're just like, it doesn't compute, right? Because like they're not used to being talked that way because they were an ex cop. But it's like, hey, well, so it's got its pros and cons. And if
Yeah.
you can like shake the ex cop thing, use it for marketing purposes, and just be a good average Joe private investigator, then like great, good for you. You'll excel. You'll excel.
Any memorable or funny stories that you have from your job that you could tell us?
I mean, like it's almost always like it always like boils down to like the cheating spouse cases, right? Where I'm getting like naked people on video, and that's always like super fun. One case I've been talking about like recently.
Wait, how
Uh,
do you get naked people on video? I mean, they're just leaving the windows open?
yeah, yeah, just enjoying themselves, right? Be out one with the afternoon delight. So yeah, years ago, I was hired to follow Playboy playmate, and I ended up getting videotape of her and her lover. And how that unfolded was the front of the house was this like tiny little Cracker Jack box of a home, but it was in the Hollywood Hills. So like the back of the house dropped off the hillside. So I'm not going to sit at the front of the house and just stare at like stucco. I'm going to go check it out. So I drove down the hill and like looked right up, and there they are, like up against the glass, like enjoying themselves. Another funny story
Uh,
is, so I was on a case, and it was actually like a child custody case. It was like really sad and tragic, but from my perspective, it was awfully funny. So I ended up like following this gal around, and it was mid-afternoon, and I get into this dive bar, like this rough neighborhood dive bar. And here I am, like all, clean cut, sitting at the bar, like filming her and this like gangbanger boyfriend of hers playing like a game of pool. And, there was like only so many places I could look. So I'm like sitting, like watching them, and this guy's just getting more and more agitated. And he actually has like a little mini confrontation with me, trying like, puffing his chest, a little male bravado bullshit. And I'm like, guy, like, what do you want from me? It's like midday, there's like one TV on over your head, like, get a life. So I end up like following them, and I knew like, you know, hello, it's like noon. They're blasted drunk. And like, what do you think the next thing is going to happen? Like, obviously, they're going to go and like get their frisky on, right? So he's like snorting drugs off her chest, grabbing ass, the works. Like, he's ready to go. Clearly, like, she's not, fighting him off. So I slipped out a little bit early. I paid my bill, got out a little early, and set up and waiting for the car. I end up following them to a park, and they parked in this like really like random spot in the back of the park, and there's this like brick wall, and it was like very hard for me to even like kind of angle my car and get into a position where I could film them. So I get out of my car, I'm in the park, and I noticed the first off, the van was rocking. So I got to get it. And so I had to like find a position where I could just film them. And I knew like, hey man, if they're like in the thralls of having sex, they're not going to really be looking around. So I just went to the middle of the park, took a knee, put my camera on my knee, and now you've got the sun behind the car blasting out the tinted windows. So like if you're on the side of the car, all you're seeing is the tinted windows. Now I'm behind the car, and the sun is like shining into the car, and now I've got the full blown sex activity. I don't want to get any more descriptive than that, but let's say there was like nothing to the imagination of them and the car, and I'm getting all of it on video. And 2 days later I found myself in court with like the sex video getting ready to roll. It was a bad scene.
Wow.
So like, yes, it was very funny for me, not funny for other people.
Right. I'm curious, when you said you were in the bar and you were trying to record them, what kind of device would you use in a situation like that?
So I have a couple of cameras that I really like. Sadly, if it gets really dark, it's very hard to get video. A lot of private investigators today will just go straight to their cell phone. It's really hard to get video with your cell phone and not look like an a-hole filming somebody. So I don't know how they do that. Like honestly, I think a couple like really discreet pictures, a little discreet video, sure. But I use a coffee cup camera. It has a camera in the lid of it. I've got another camera that's like a battery pack camera, and I can view it on my phone and see kind of like what I'm filming at the time and see what I need to do. If it's a little dark, I know I can edit it in post, not a problem. It's not going to court anyway, so fine, I can get that video that way.
Interesting. Do you think that there's a future for the glasses? I know that they keep trying to stick cameras into them.
So the glasses are amazing, the video is amazing, and they serve a purpose. However, they're not good for like discrete video because like when you turn, let's say the Ray-Ban, for example, I turn them on, a light comes on, right? And it tells you like, hey, this guy's recording you. Um, and the video quality is like amazing. So I'll use those for like difficult process serves. And the reason why I use them is I want to show that like I did serve the guy and that or person. And then the last time, thank God I was filming because this celebrity tried to hit me with his car and like multiple times. And while we were on his property, he called his private security and that guy showed up, obviously a cop, and pulled his gun out on me. So he had me at gunpoint while I'm serving these docs. And it's like I've got it all on video. And because I was videotaping it, is what I think kept them cool. And I mean, that situation was already like pretty intense. So, like, yeah. So there's a time and place. Yeah, there's a time and place.
Amazing. Okay. Have you ever had to fire a client because of things that were revealed that in their, I don't know, past or something?
Not really. And the reason being is actually I might be firing a client like right now because she's a super intense attorney. And honestly, like I don't like the way she's talking to us. And she has this like grandiose idea that it's just so easy to do what we're doing. And it's like, well, if that was the case, then like why aren't you doing it? So there's that. But yeah, I've had clients where I'll just wrap the job up, not necessarily like fire them outright, but yeah, yeah, it happens.
Uh, I mean, you're gonna get me fired up. I really hate people that think that somebody else's job and what they do is super easy. They just like drive, it's like driving a bus, whatever, you know. Um, I think there's a human, it's a human thing. I think that if I'm not doing that, then my assumption is whatever it is, it's easy or there's an angle,
Yeah.
right?
You're a
Instead of
private
there might be something
investigator.
difficult.
Yeah, you're just sitting in a car. Like that's all you're doing. Like I've seen it on TV. I've seen them follow people. Like I could do it. Okay, well, good luck with that. Let me know. Let me know how that
I've seen
works out.
Rockford Files.
Yeah, I've seen that show from 40, 50 years ago. Sure.
He had oceanfront property in a trailer. Pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
But what about like Magnum PI, right? Like living on Hawaii, following people in like a convertible red Ferrari. Yeah, that's how I roll. When I'm out driving the Honda Accord, I just got the Ferrari like ready to go for my cheating spouse
You're
case.
gonna need a way bigger mustache for this. You're gonna go that angle.
Exactly.
Okay. So you said OSINT before. That's OSINT. What is that acronym?
So it's open source intelligence, whatever the T would be. So we just like to refer to it as like open source, right? So what
Okay.
that means is basically it's more in depth than Googling, but yeah, you're Google searching people's names, phone numbers, cities that they live in, and you're trying to cultivate more information about that person of interest.
Okay. So that's when we were talking about databases before. That's OSINT. Okay. I didn't connect that. Okay. Has this career changed to your worldview in any way?
Not at this point in my career. I think early on when I first became a private investigator, it did make me kind of feel like, wow, I'm seeing the darker side of things, right? Like I'm seeing people cheat on their spouse. I've investigated a couple homicides. So I've talked to people that have murdered other people, stabbed other people, shot other people. I've talked to gangbangers that have done that and witnessed that. I've dealt with like auto accidents where there were like horrific injuries. And then I've seen just outright fraudulent bullshit claims destroy businesses. So, yeah, so maybe in the first 5 to 10 years when I was performing this, I was very dark, and then now that I've been doing it long enough, I've just kind of like chalked it up like it's a human nature thing, right? These people are like opportunists, and it just kind of is what it is. So, I don't let that affect me and who I am and how I carry myself.
We had another episode where interviewed a repo man, and he works in, I think it was Arizona. But one of the things they use are license plate readers. And is that legal in California? Can you use something like that, or how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, I actually like love high-end repos myself. Like I do that as well. So shout out to the repo people, man. Those guys are doing like a solid, I don't know how else to explain it, but like out of all the most dangerous things I've done, the bounty hunting, literally going after people that have murdered other people, the most dangerous thing I've ever done was auto repo. Anytime I've ever had a gun pulled on me, it was over a car. Knife pulled on me, over a car. So those repo people, they've got their work cut out for them.
Okay. Yeah. I was really surprised when he started going into the fact that it almost sounded like a PI job, where they do surveillance and such that you've described. That I was very surprised to hear about that.
Yeah, most of them aren't, like most of these repo people out there are like trash. And I say that because I know. And number two, yeah, you'll have a handful of people that have access to databases. They'll do their skip tracing. They'll use the LPR services. We use the LPR services on our cases as well. Yeah, so shout out to those repo people for going the distance.
All right. So it says here that you were recently featured in Los Angeles Times and a Rolling Stones magazine for a crypto case that has to do with your client, LASD officers. What's that about?
What a mess, right? So the super short of it was I was hired to perform surveillance on an individual. That individual, I was told by my client that that individual had stolen a laptop and a couple other devices worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And my client at the time was a young billionaire, and he had nothing but time and money and was willing to invest in surveillance to locate that laptop. So, okay, we ended up doing the surveillance and we followed this individual for, I think it was like maybe 5, 6 weeks. We spotted the actual laptop. And so the problem was the client, unbeknownst to me, had another team of scumbags and tough guys. And I think he was also using the dark web to reach out to people to perform other activities. And so while I was performing the surveillance, he was harassing like other people that he thought were like witnesses or associated with this guy. And then on top of that, when I identified that that was the laptop, um, he then sent some goons to have the door like kicked in, shots were fired, the whole thing. Like this guy just went like completely sideways on everybody. He went from like what I thought was like a respectful business idea with a plan of action to suddenly he just like lost his mind like and started lashing out like a 12-year-old kid. And yeah, so what ended up happening was he then backed out of paying me plus reversed 50,000 in funds, maybe more than that through his Amex card and just really just went ham. Like this guy, he just wanted to just destroy my life and the other person's life. And what ultimately ended up happening was I had to make a decision to how to like stop this and get the attention of the local district attorney's office because this guy is so out of control that I really think the next level is he's going to kill the other person. So I sat down with my attorney. We drafted a complaint. We initiated the lawsuit. And that was just exclusively to get the attention of the district attorney. Several months later, not only did we get the attention of the district attorney, we actually got the attention of the DOJ and the FBI. So I found myself in like 3 to 4 meetings with the FBI. And the result of that was 6 cops being arrested. Several of them are facing 20 to 30 years of federal time. And the crypto con artist and his girlfriend are facing 30 years. Plus, he's being extradited for other crimes. And the girlfriend, in my opinion, like fled the country and is facing a couple years in prison. So, yeah, it went from what I thought was like, oh, okay, kind of a little bit of an eccentric job with an eccentric person to like, what the hell happened? That's the short version.
All right. All right. You mentioned the dark web. Do you ever have to get on there to do your work, or farm that out to somebody to
I
look for
I
things
don't
there?
touch it. I feel that like the majority of it's kind of like I mean it's exactly what it is. It's a black market. You know, if you're really good at it, yeah, you can, let's say you can take the database information that we have, you can then escalate that and go on the dark web, probably buy stolen passwords or, you know, like let's say now if I'm buying data, I can get your email addresses, right? Like 10 of the last email addresses you use. And then if you're good at the dark web, you can go on the dark web, see all these data breaches, see if that email address matches up with anybody's user ID. Then they'll then sell you that password that was current at that time. You can then take that password and see if that works on any current like websites that you find us involved on, right? So there's stuff like that, but that's more of like at that level, you're kind of like a dirtbag hacker, right? So, you know, does the deep web have its use for investigations? Yeah, but I'm not at that level where I would go there.
Okay.
I'd also be hard pressed to like discuss that in court, right? Like how you're on the dark web, where you're sourcing your information from, and like, you know, it's just kind of like, how does that stand up in court? That you're basically buying information on the black market.
Last question. You can answer this any way you like. What is a secret that most people do not know being a private investigator?
I would just say that it's nothing like TV portrays us. Yeah, so you're you're an office person and or you're a marketing person and or you're doing surveillance or statements or you know, finding witnesses, finding heirs, doing bounty hunting. So, yeah, it's nothing like TV.
So, would you say the main difference is just TV's sexier in how they portray it?
TV just outright lies. Yeah, so not only is it like sexier, like I'm not going to go in and like go bug someone's house.
That would make things way easier, I would imagine, if
Yeah,
you could.
yeah, that'd be great.
Ken, appreciate you
Yep.
coming on Tales from the Shift, man. I don't think anybody who's watching this knew this much about private investigation. So you came
Yeah, I
along.
appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.